Donnie, why don't you go to the podium and turn that mic on, please, if it's not on already.
Did or did not?
There you
You got it. All right. I have 2 months of data here. So the month of June, for the garbage collection, we were 309.71 tons. That's down again. I think in May, I thought that we would probably be up, but we're down. Not sure why this trend, but even the month of July, we are down, but I think some of that is attributed to the Seagrove condominiums going off of that for the month of July, but not June. But for the month of July, 334.17 tons of garbage collected. And keep in mind, that is just single family. That has nothing to do with the commercial side that Carolina Waste does, that does have a lot of condominiums in it.
So, Donnie, I wonder, June of last year, many people were still hunkered down at home and doing a lot of takeout. And it seemed like when we discussed this last year, that was kind of speculation of why the big increase.
That's right. It's in line with the year before, but I thought, based on what I was seeing out there and the time it was taking the team to collect the garbage, that we would be higher than what we were.
Mhm.
But I was wrong. And you can, I mean, this is county data that I receive. Yard debris. Yard debris for the month of June, we're up roughly 75 tons in June. And again, an increase of 75 tons in July. And that, we're out there, we're hustling. I think it's a catch-22, to be very frank, that why is the yard debris up? And it's a catch-22. Mother Nature hadn't been through here, and I would much rather pick up an additional 75 tons than have to deal with what Mother Nature would bring us. But I think that's part of what I'm seeing.
This is going to be a discussion item later in the agenda too, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Month of June, 33.3 tons of miscellaneous transported to Palmetto Commerce, and in July, 26.86 tons. And then you can see under the vehicle maintenance, the end of last year's budget, what we ended up, and we were ended about not quite $30,000 over budget. Primarily at the end of the last 2 months, there were some major issues with 2 vehicles, which created that overage. Then we started out this year, and we spent $5,400, $5,500 in the month of July, starting this year's budget. Most of those were tires that they were sorely needed even in June, but we managed. Other than that, questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Robert for his report.
I think we'll have quite a few questions when we discuss yard debris. Mentioned to me.
Okay, good afternoon. I'll give you an overview, starting with drainage. First item, ED Services has been doing extensive cleaning of Forest Trail Basin, all the drainage culverts there. That's a continuation of right after the small internal projects were complete as far as the piping going in. We've had EDs go through and clean anywhere from 18 inches to 2 feet, some places 3 feet down in the basin, starting at the outfall on Waterway Boulevard, working our way all the way back to 32nd Avenue. Within that basin is where we've had a lot of the upsizing of the pipes. And we've noticed that the water is flowing a lot better now. We just have a small section of about 500 to 600 feet that has to be completed. They told me that they would be on the island next week to complete that. And then we should be able to see how that flows from 32nd Avenue all the way to the outfall. So, see, like I said, some places where this was extensive up, the guys were up about to their waist in material that they took away. So that's been going on. That actually started early, middle of May, and we're still continuing with that. They've also done some vegetation, ditch restructuring, 25th Avenue, Duck and Sparrow they were working on, also 4th and Palm. DOT's been down to do 25th Avenue. I've been working on a drainage maintenance inventory for FEMA and for the city. So we have an inventory of everything that's been done up to date as far as maintenance. There's been a second repair of the drainage on 41st Avenue at the intersection. There's a sinkhole that keeps developing. It's been repaired. It's sunk again. DOT's been out, and we're just watching that. And then we've also gone with Public Works staff and cleaned dropped inlets around the city. As far as facilities.
Robert,
Yes.
I have a couple of questions
Sure.
on drainage. And just a little clarification on Edie, when you say vegetation ditch restructuring, what exactly does that mean?
So there's two crews. So the vegetation is everything that grows, I'm sorry, that grows alongside the ditches and will eventually flop into the ditch and clog it. So they'll go through, weed whack, clean all that out, and then, pull that material out of the ditch, and then we remove it. Restructuring would be more of what we're doing, where you're digging down with the jet back trucks and sucking out all that muck and material, and then actually restructuring a channel in the ditch where the water can flow.
Okay.
And if you,
And when you remove the vegetation, I mean, you're forecasting that is going to be falling into the ditch anyways, but you're not losing any potential, like,
no,
it's
so
not
the,
helping the erosion
right, so the
situation.
vegetation's cut, it's not killed off.
Okay,
So
gotcha.
you're just cutting it down. That will grow in within, yes.
So it's
yeah,
still there
yeah.
to help
Yes,
stabilize.
exactly.
Okay.
We wouldn't want to remove it or, kill it off by
Okay,
any means.
How often do they do that, Robert? Cut it down?
So we have certain areas like 41st that is almost all the time. I can
Mm-hmm.
give you like Loudon and these ditches that constantly grow full sun. And then the ditches that may be back in Forest Trail where we don't have as much sun, that's like case by case. I'll go around, see which ones have more vegetation than others, direct EDs to go over there. Also, you will get some feedback from residents that say, hey, it's growing a little bit. Can you send the guys over? And that's kind of how.
But the key thing is you are leaving the root system in place so that it doesn't have
otherwise,
the.
you can see in
Really,
areas
yeah.
where we don't have, where you're in the shade or in deep in Forest Trail, where you will have erosion because there's nothing to hold back the embankments.
and my other question was on 41st. I shared with you pictures that was on social media of drainage problems that the person who posted them suggested were created by contractor equipment sitting there for a while.
Well, yeah, and all those internal projects aren't complete yet.
Mhm.
Douglas and I have been around and we've looked at that exact puddle right after rain. We've been at 32nd. There is still work to be completed.
Mhm.
Rip wrapping on Cross Lane, and then obviously all the asphalting that needs to be done. Also, the one pipe was delayed on 41st, which leads me to believe that's why they didn't totally clean up everything, because they're gonna have to restage after
Okay.
Labor Day, I believe is when we're gonna do it, and then continue on and finish off that project.
Okay, so not completely done there. but
Right,
Hopefully
exactly.
not creating problems.
Right,
along the
and
way.
from what we saw, there was, the riprap came up a little bit higher, that can be just lowered, and that puddle should actually go away.
And we have notified and shared pictures of that location to Thomas and Hutton, who's the project manager. They've shared it with Gulfstream, who's the contractor. And they've been asked to address that issue. There seems to be some elevation differences there that may be causing the water not to flow into the ditch. So that would need to be addressed quickly. And we'll let you know once that's been resolved.
Well, that's where they were staging and storing a
Mhm.
lot of the equipment and supplies. And I'm thinking that just got
Maybe it
compressed with all that,
sounds like that
with
might
all
be
the
it.
work being done there, because that definitely was flooding in a spot that doesn't normally.
Right, yeah, so just to want to make sure that gets resolved before
Mhm.
we get in the heart of hurricane
Mhm.
season.
I should. Okay, well, good. As far as facilities, we had basic maintenance. We did, I worked on a cleaning RFP for City Hall, Public Safety Building, Public Works, and also working on one for the public restrooms. We had some air conditioning repairs, Public Safety Building, and Fire Station 2, which is pretty typical being in the middle of the summer. I'm still working on the electrical hookup for the generator at the Recreation Center. That should be complete by, it's not a major hookup, it's just we're gonna test and see what will run in the Recreation Department with that generator. Front Beach, basic maintenance there, everything that we do monthly. And then at the intersection coming down 14th Avenue, the Center Island and the 14th Avenue beach access, all the landscape lighting that was broken in there has all been restored. Landscaping and right of ways, we've removed and re-leveled the Moby mat at 9th Avenue. We've done that several times this season and brought that down. We're now doing full maintenance of Palm Boulevard every week till the end of September. That's cutting it every week from 21st to 41st. We've also done additional right-of-way cleanups on the land side of 45th to 41st, and then breach inlet on the creek side, also down the side there, which really hasn't been done before. There's the beach path on 42nd, 46th Avenue. We did a heavy cleanup in there to make it more accessible. 4th of July, we installed 62 flags around the city for the 4th of July. And then we had our DHEC Marina and Public Safety Building underground storage tank compliance meeting with DHEC. And if there's anything that I've left out, if you have any questions.
Fine.
You mentioned the compactor,
The,
city compactor.
well, it's in there, but yeah, I mean, as far as maintenance, cleaning it and,
One behind the dinghy?
One behind the dinghy.
Yeah.
I want to make a comment.
go ahead, yeah. I'm good if you're good.
Oh, I have a couple things, but go
Sure.
ahead.
This is just something that I've tried to put my head around and something that's new more frequently this year than ever before, ever before. And so in trying to figure out what's causing this, I had to increase that dumpster collection to twice a week. Never before in almost 20 years have we had to do that, with the exception of the week of July the 4th. I did do it. So this year, 5 times we've come in the mornings, and both Robert and I, that's the first thing we do before we even go see who's at Public Works, is inspect that Front Beach area. 5 times this year, this compactor has been 7,500 bags of restaurant garbage down the ramps. Garbage just piled up. First 2 times, and I spoke to the administrator, but we've had, and I thought it was new personnel. Every year they got to train new personnel for these restaurants. The last 3 times, it's been after the concerts at the Windjammer. And you come in and it's just a disaster. This past Monday, I come in and it's 20 minutes to 7. Carolina Waste is there. And there's a 30-yard roll-off in front of the compactor, slam full with restaurant garbage. And then the compactor had 100, 150 bags of wet garbage, restaurant garbage, all over this compactor. So not only did we thought they filled the compactor, but in Carolina Waste, who was gonna empty this compactor on Saturday, saw that it was a mess and just dropped this 30-yarder and they filled it up. So Monday, after we did our garbage, we got this thing cleaned up and the compactor was not full. It was just the lack of employees running the RAM. That's what it was. So, and it's like a herd of cows. When one doesn't do it, then the next one comes and throws there because they've got stations. These restaurants and the staff has different stations and they're responsible for, some restaurants, they're responsible for taking their garbage to the compactor. And they just didn't run the ramp. But I'm gonna leave this, and this is costing the restaurants more than it's costing the city because of the user fee. But I'm gonna leave this on twice a week through the end of August because Public Works, we just can't continue to do this major cleanup that takes 8 or 10 guys, clean it up, pressure wash it. So I'm gonna leave this twice a week. Our service, it's not, a dollar is a dollar. Don't get me wrong. But the city, it's not that much money compared to the user fee at the end of the year that these restaurants, and Debbie has to figure out who is using what percentage with this compactor. But that's what's going to be a hard hit and increase for the restaurants that use that compactor at the end of the year. But I don't have a choice but to keep this thing on twice a week because we can't prevent, number one, causing disruption with a restaurant that's close to it and having to deal with the aesthetics as well as the smell. But at the same time, Public Works, the resources that it takes to do that, it takes away from other things that we should be doing. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Donnie.
Can I say something, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think part of it too, and Donnie raised some good points, but I think we'd all agree that there's been some pent up demand also with people being more social because of what happened last year
Right.
and things getting shut down a lot. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I can see on social media, those concerts have been very popular down here that they're having, and it's creating larger crowds. Thus, there's going to be more trash generated. And I think it's something we're just going to have to live with and deal with as everything stabilizes and businesses rebound and things settle out, hopefully.
Well, we've gone through this over the years and it's the only way to cut back on it is it's just a constant education campaign. And get those managers of those restaurants and talk to them and say, look, this is coming out of your pocket. Look at this mess. Are you aware of this? And that's what we've done in the past. What do you think, Donnie?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that Malcolm now would know.
Yes,
It's just something that I wanted to bring to your attention.
I appreciate it. You have something else for us?
I think
Yeah,
Susan had a
Mr.
question.
Chairman. I had just had a couple questions and, well, one was a comment and that was the green space around near the restrooms looks great.
Okay.
I mean, you can really, I've been down there more this year. I can't remember exactly when you made that transition, but it seems like it's, every time I go back, it looks better. Like you've done some
Yeah,
nice
we've been adding
landscaping.
stuff and they've, I think the last thing was the string lighting for at night. But yeah, it did turn out well. It turned out well for the restaurants down there.
Mhm.
I think it just improved the whole space and,
I
it's been a
agree.
little bit of maintenance because we have a lot of traffic that goes through there, but It does look good.
Yeah, it's looking good. So that, I just wanted to mention that. And then the other though is, I'm wondering if you all feel like you're staffed well enough to do all this pickup along Palm Boulevard and along the streetscape. I mean, do you feel like you have,
Yeah, I think we've found the time and gotten in a rhythm when the trucks leave to go to the dump. It gives us enough time and it kind of works out well. It's, it's not immediate, so it would be Wednesday mornings. But it gives us the ability to go through Front Beach, to go through the parking lot and the compactor ahead of the landscapers coming to the parking lot, which they used to have to pick up.
okay,
So now it gets them through there quicker, and that's why I'm finding a little more time to move them to places like, Creekside of Breach Inlet and stuff, so we can kind of fine tune some of the other areas of the island. But we have been managing, and I think Donnie can agree that we've kind of stayed on the schedule with that, outside of the disruption with the big mess that ends up on the compactor.
do you keep track of the volume of trash that you all collect at all in any
Not
kind
the
of way?
volume. When Joe will come in with his trash from the beach, I do record most of it by taking a picture of it.
Mhm.
The guys, when they go through the parking lot, they'll pick it up. It'll end up in the yellow barrels in the parking lot or back in the compactor. So
Not
unless
so
I
much.
was following them behind or telling them to bring the bags back, it would be, a little bit difficult. I've seen a reduction. We've moved some garbage cans around in the parking lot, moved them a little higher up, and I have on one side, we're gonna move it. And this Monday, I actually noticed a big reduction in the garbage by just moving it around. I think just getting it closer for people to,
Oh, in terms of litter, you mean?
yes,
That's left.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
that's on
Good.
the ground.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I may, I just want to publicly thank and recognize Robert and Amy for their work associated with the flags that we had around the island during the 4th of July weekend. I mean, they're just absolutely wonderful. You mentioned an idea and they executed it beautifully with help with some other departments. And I also want to thank the members of the Exchange Club. We reached out to them for some volunteer work and they gladly sent some folks over and they installed all the bunting that you saw around the Front Beach municipal parking lots. So we want to appreciate, we appreciate the work that they do in the community and their willingness to always help out during situations like that. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Super. Thank you.
Here, here. Thank you.
Going on to old business, item A, update on phase 3 drainage project, small internal project and Waterway Boulevard path elevation project.
So I'll give you all a quick update on that. We have received the 2 critical area permits for the forest trail outfall. So that project will be fully permitted by the time we go out for bidding. You all recall that City Council last month approved the change order for Thomas and Hutton to include bidding and construction services for those 2 outfalls. Our schedule has the timeline that we have and we're working on is to be ready to go out for bid, between this month and next month for those 2 outfalls. 41st is more complicated. We're still working, even though permits have been submitted. That'll be, because of mitigation, that'll be a little bit more complicated and we're scheduling that and for late of 2022, late next year. So we're in the process moving forward. Again, we've received some permits for that. For the small internal projects, not a lot to update from our last meeting when we provided a capital projects update to council. As you all know, one small project has been delayed until after Labor Day, so that's still pending. And the packet I included in your meeting packet today, updated cost estimates for the 2 outfalls and the Waterway Boulevard elevation project. As we have seen with everything else, prices are going up. So we're looking at increased costs for that phase 3 drainage. We will soon go out for bid for 2 of the 3 outfalls, so we'll have actual numbers very soon. But we would need to be prepared to see higher numbers and then have a plan on how to, be able to come up with the rest of, if it's above and beyond what we have borrowed. But just wanted to update you all and mention that again. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
I don't have any questions. Anybody else?
Do we have an approximate idea of how much costs have escalated at this point, percentage wise? Any ballpark figure over and above what we estimated?
It's estimated between 30 and 40%. The estimates that are included in your packet already include a 25% contingency, just to give us a little bit more flexibility and wiggle room. But that's what we're seeing, a 30 to 45 increase in just cost of materials and labor.
And does any of this, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Rusty.
does any of this qualify for any type of grants or anything that we know of?
We submitted grants, of the CTC grant, the Charleston County Transportation Committee grants. We'll know more about those by the end of this year through October. I believe October, November, that's when they'll make a decision. We also submitted for grants through the Rural Infrastructure Authority. Unfortunately, that one was declined. We have been having meetings and discussions about pursuing grant opportunities, not only through the American Rescue Plan, but grant opportunities through different federal agencies that have been provided, a lot of federal money for particularly water and infrastructure projects. So that's an ongoing work that we're pursuing, particularly for phase 3 drainage.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition to those sources, we have 1.9 million surplus. Would you contemplate directing some of that money towards these projects as well as the CARES money that we know that we're getting?
So yeah, so we're estimated at about $1.92 million of what we call positive net result from FY21 budget. And the city's allocation from the American Rescue Plan is about $2.2 million. The treasurer and the chair Ways and Means and I have had a meeting where we've been discussing some proposals or alternative projects to present to city council on how to allocate those monies. And certainly phase 3 drainage is at the top of the list for both pots of money, just because of the big priority and basically having shovel-ready projects that need to be funded.
In the past, when we had surplus, this is a big surplus because it's a very unusual year, but we've always had, what, 600,000 to 800,000 consistently every year. And what councils has in the past voted to do was take the lion's share, the majority of that money, and put it into capital projects, and fund these projects you're talking about. That's how it works.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, that's correct, sir.
Okay, so we're going to B, update on island-wide drainage master plan, RFP.
The city issued a request for proposals for the master plan, island-wide master plan for drainage. The planning commission narrowed it down to 3 of the 5 proposers that submitted proposals for this work. They interviewed those 3 and ultimately requested pricing from one, that is Davis and Floyd. They have requested a little bit more of detailed information from them. I think that has already been received and not yet seen or discussed by Planning Commission, but they have a meeting coming up and we expect to receive a recommendation from Planning Commission to award a contract to a company for this work very, very soon.
Very good. Any questions? None?
No.
Okay. We go to C, discussion of potential solutions to drainage ditch erosion issues as Councilmember Smith was talking early about.
Yes, and I don't know, Douglas, if you want to update, you all remember that we developed this idea of putting together some guidelines and some agreement that residents who want to make improvements to ditches that abut their property, but they're city ditches, creating a way that would allow that, but would ensure that what they're doing to protect that ditch from erosion and their property from erosion is done well and within correct practices. So Douglas? do you want to-
Yeah, I think that that pretty well captures it. We're pretty far along in that process, and we have created basically an advisory, kind of just a cover sheet that explains the process to anybody wanting to do it. We have a sketch of how to do it that Thomas and Hutton helped us create. And then we have a draft easement agreement that we would expect somebody wanting to do this, enter into an agreement with the city that basically says, if the city, we're going to allow you to do it, but if we need to change it to help the flow of water, we may do that. And if it doesn't work for whatever reason, we're going to have a process spelled out for having you correct it if it doesn't work. And then ultimately it could result in, the city, if somebody were to put it in there, put it in wrong, not correct it, kind of mess up the system, and we can't get it resolved, there'd be a process by which we would get it removed and restored. That easement agreement language it was with the old city attorney, it's now with the new city attorney. And it's just a matter of getting their kind of final blessing on that agreement. And then I think we'll be ready to go. And I know there may be one or two residents who are already interested in, how to do it. Additionally, Robert has reached out to some contractors to just kind of get a list of or an expectation so he can respond to people interested in doing this. If they want to have a private company do it, kind of have a guideline for what they could expect to pay to do it. But we think it could ultimately result in the ditches being better maintained and in the long term requiring less maintenance on our end. So we think it'll be good
Yeah,
if it goes well.
yes, sir.
Are there many contractors that do that type of work?
I think there are a lot of commercial, like the guys that we hire,
Uh-huh.
Edie's, there's a number of those, all these companies that give us pricing. I don't think that they frequently do that small a project. We happen to have contact with one or two, which I would kind of call niche contractors they work on that small residential scale, but they have the capabilities of doing larger projects like that. It's kind of a smaller pool. They generally either do landscaping and they don't do this type of work, or they're the big operations that do like street construction and major projects, and they don't really get down into these smaller projects. So there are some, just not a lot.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
New business. It's gonna be a good one. A, discussion of yard debris collection operation and challenges with the change in route to Beast Ferry. This comes up every few years. and
Chair.
I think,
Mr. Chair, did we miss the update on the environmental
yeah, we
advisory?
sure did. Thank you.
I can-
Donnie, we'll catch the update on environmental.
I know Council Member
Advisory.
Smith wants to hear
Right,
this.
We'll get to that. We want to hear from you on this first, and we'll get right, the next item will be old business item D.
Yes, do you want me to do?
No, well, I want to hear from Donnie
Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
now. It's just a little switcheroo.
Okay.
Okay, and Desiree, you may have to remind me when we changed. It was sometime last year.
And, August 2020.
But to give you a little background, prior to the change, all of my garbage, all of east of the Cooper's garbage went to the Carolina Waste transfer site that the county employs, Carolina Waste, which is right there at the Azalea Drive, Leeds Avenue, at the county building, but right down the street. That operation was a very quick and smooth operation over there, where it's a concrete pad. You dump your garbage truck. They had a dozer that just pushed it off this concrete pad, and an 18-wheeler was underneath it, and it's just dumped and transferred to Beast Ferry. So they, about a year ago or whenever it was, contacted and said, you will no longer use the Carolina Waste transfer site. Isle of Palms will now take all of their garbage to Bees Ferry. So that operation is somewhat different. It's not just a pad with a dozer waiting on you. It's, you have to go back to the hill is what we call it. You have to go up, wait in line on the mound where everybody is dumping. There's more of a line. So it's created about a 3, sometimes 3.5 hour turnaround from the time that my driver leaves this island to the time he gets back. So what is that doing? So that is on Mondays, when he leaves here, 12:30, 1 o'clock, it's 3:15, 3:30 getting back. On Tuesdays in the summer, when he's leaving at 2:30, if he were to leave at 2:30, it would be 5:30, 6 o'clock, maybe even later coming back. So what I've had to do is, because of this traffic on 526, not here, 526, Glen McConnell and Bees Ferry, is for this year, for the first year, I'm holding the Tuesday garbage because of that lateness and the amount of traffic in the afternoons. So I'm having to hold that garbage, and at 7 o'clock, they're leaving to go to Bees Ferry on a Wednesday morning. So what is that doing? They leave at 7 o'clock, they get back here at 10. So now they got an empty garbage truck where historically we've packed yard debris on Wednesdays. That's normally was empty until this year. Now at 10 o'clock, I got empty trucks, but they got to turn around and leave at 12 to get to Bees Ferry to empty their yard debris to get back over here by 3 to be ready for garbage on Thursday. So what did that do? That eliminated the ability of my packers to pack yard debris on Wednesdays, with the exception of one truck that I use, truck 22, as a yard debris truck. Now, what I'm having to do is, we do have the number 2 truck, which is a 20 yarder that I use for miscellaneous on Wednesdays, that it's empty on some Tuesdays. If I can get with 4 trucks, then that's what I'll do. And that gives me a miscellaneous truck for all day Wednesday. But when I have to go to 5 trucks, then that eliminates miscellaneous in a packer on Wednesday, because there's no sense in putting 2 hours in a truck of miscellaneous. I mean, it's just, that's very inefficient, and have to leave here at 12 o'clock to get to Palmetto Commerce to empty it and get back over here by 3:30, 4 o'clock, if at all possible. So it's created a firestorm for the Public Works Department to not have the vehicles that I need for that one day in the summer. Now, once we get back to the once a week, then you've got it covered. So for 13 weeks, we don't have the apparatus or the personnel with the travel time to get this stuff done.
So could I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm reviewing all the facts. Who was the person or the agency and that decided to put this policy in place? And did you have a chance to ask them, like, this is really going to drive our costs way up?
Desiree, would you like to answer that?
Sure. So that's Charleston County Public Works. We received the notification, I believe, on a Thursday, and we were told starting Monday, this is what you're going to do. And I immediately reached out to my counterpart in the county, to the Public Works Director, anybody that I could get on the phone and say, this is just not going to work. And explaining what this would do in terms of impacting our operations. We were basically giving no choice. There was no other alternative. There was no willingness to accommodate. I have not been aware of any other municipality that has been asked to change routes. The reasoning that was provided to us was a cost-cutting measure as it relates to the impacts of COVID last year. And I think everybody was budgeting conservatively in terms of accommodations and tax revenue and all that. So that was the explanation that was provided. We even asked what it would take if the city wanted to pay extra to continue to use the transfer station, and that for some reason wasn't an option at the time. I have repeatedly reached out to the county. I did so a couple weeks ago. Again, have not received a response from the county about, you know, we complied. We did it for the summer. It's creating a significant impact to our operations. We're seeing it. I mean, I have Donnie sometimes running routes off after hours just to keep up. Plus you've seen the increase in debris that we've collected, unprecedented numbers. So I have discussed this with the Chair Ward, and with the mayor for help in terms of, you know, reaching to their counterparts at the Charleston County Council to see what can be done to allow the city to continue to use the transfer station as we have for years, that, you know, for a long, long time. And if budgeting was an option, I think we've seen how everybody has luckily rebounded pretty well from the pandemic, and things, accommodation tax and hospitality, they're back to even better than pre-COVID levels. So I would like some support from council in terms of reaching out to folks over there and see what can be done, because the impact is real, and it's something that we may be able, or we're able to accommodate without much impact during the off season. But due to our schedule of twice a week garbage collection in the summer, it became unsustainable.
Desiree, this app actually, the change was actually made last year, if I remember correctly.
That is correct. And
Yeah.
we reported on it, we talked about it. If I'm not mistaken, it was either October or August. I don't know why those 2 months are coming up in my head, but we can find out. But it was late in the year in
And it was,
2020.
but it was at a time that didn't, other than the time spent to go the extra distance to Bees Ferry or whatever, it wasn't something that really
Well,
created a lot of issues until we got into the summer months here
Correct.
this year.
I will say, I distinctly remember you all forecasting that this would be
Mhm.
a hardship.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
the summertime. So it's from that perspective, it's not a surprise that we're struggling.
No, we knew it was going to be a challenge. We didn't understand exactly how big of a challenge it would be. And I think not only this change, but also the challenges we've had with staffing and folks being out on sick leave, that also, and just exacerbates the issue with some of the delays in debris collection. But mostly it has been just the change that Donnie spelled out in terms of timing, coming in, getting out and in back in the island.
Well, I'm gonna contact our county council and for East Cooper, Dickie Swears. I haven't had a chance. Sorry, got to it before now. I will definitely, it's on my calendar for tomorrow.
Would you like us all to reach out to him?
I mean, I think that would be helpful.
Should we
It
do it
wouldn't hurt.
individually or do it collectively?
Individually, I would.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Dickie Swears is our contact person for that.
Right, get all your friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Should we also be reaching out to the council chairman as well?
I don't see how that would, what that would hurt.
Any- Okay, gotcha. I mean, we'll need more than one vote.
Yeah.
I have a procedure question at this time. I think that's all we need right now, Donnie. We understand what
Until
you're
you
going
get
through.
to,
And we're going to do the best we can with it.
Uh,
I'll try to get you some.
Mr.
relief.
Chair, can I make one other comment though?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
In regards to, I mean, I know we're going to try to influence change here and see if we can, get things changed, that we have a better situation. But in the meanwhile, with all the yard debris that we have throughout the communities, I mean, I was down at Forest Trail today, not necessarily looking for yard debris. I had some other things and I just cut through there because I like to do it occasionally. And there is a lot of yard debris on this island, no doubt about it. Is there something we can do in the meanwhile? Hire another, I mean, outsource in some way or get another truck on hand? I know it's expensive, but just try to get caught up as much as we can.
If I may, I can probably address that. I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
I may have missed it, but I thought I'd requested that we discuss changing the ordinance about yard debris or the rules on yard debris. Maybe I just missed it, but I wanted to talk about that tonight, but it's not on the agenda.
You are correct. You did make that comment during city council about wanting to discuss
Yeah.
potential changes, and I apologize.
No, I should have followed up. It's okay. But very briefly, since it's not on the agenda, as y'all remember, my speaking at city council, last city council meeting, that it's a real problem for Public Works, that some of these contractors, they bring debris from jobs off the island, or they'll do a commercial job, clearing a lot or something, and many times not all of them, but many of them put the debris on the side of the road. It increases the strain on Public Works Department. But I will make sure that I'll remind you or remind staff about that for the September meeting. I don't want to go any further because I think people might not want us talking about it unless it's on the agenda. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering if there's maybe a halfway that perhaps we could suggest if they could, at least during the summer season, allow us to go back to our usual practice. If that has, I mean, because that's where we're really feeling the heat the most. And
Yeah.
so maybe if they felt like we were trying to work with them,
Mhm.
they might be.
That might be, yeah,
That'd
that
be
might be a
good
good
point to
compromise.
Take up with Councilman Swears.
I
Yes,
do,
Go ahead.
I do want to address Councilmember Streetman's comment. Donnie and I have had that same conversation. I've requested us to look into getting help from the county, from their Public Works Department, to see what they can do to help get the island clean and provide some assistance to Public Works. So we'll be working on that.
Okay, good. I hope that works out. I mean, it's unsightly, as we all know, and none of us are proud of that situation. So if we can just get it cleaned up as quickly as we can and then get a fix as soon as we can, that would be great.
Yes.
Well,
And I'm sure
definitely.
we're all well aware of it, and I support Public Works Department 100%, always have. I know Donnie does an outstanding job, and he's on it. Anything else?
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially with hurricane, tropical storm season, we want to make sure that our debris is out of the way. So, but thank
Okay,
you.
Let's back up to old business item D, update on Environmental Advisory Committee.
So we have received, I think this has been reported to council before, but we have received a total of 27 applications from residents who are interested in becoming members of this newly created board. We're very excited about the level of interest in the community, and not only the how many people are interested, but the backgrounds and expertise of some of our community members that want to give back. So I think it's only, I will say, I didn't think that we would get this much response. I'm really pleasantly surprised about that. The Personnel Committee, according to the rules that were approved by council, the Personnel Committee will be the committee reviewing the applications and making a recommendation to council for those appointments. It is a 9-seat board. Of those 9s, it includes 2 students, 1 high school and 1 college student, who would only serve 1 year each. So that would be a recurring role. Give other folks the opportunity to participate as well. The Personnel Committee has assigned staff to look at the applications, and those that are obviously very highly qualified and have a very specific background and education in environmental studies or any related field to be assigned to serve in the board. And then they also discuss establishing some sort of lottery system for those categories where we have more people than seats available. So we're still kind of working through the selection process for that board. And we'll be having, the expectation is that the Personnel Committee would have a recommendation to council at their next meeting, which is next week.
I know you have questions, Susan. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I've shared some of my concerns about using the lottery system in any way already with our city administrator, and just, there's so many highly qualified applicants who either have through volunteer or professional experience. I don't foresee that you're gonna have any slots left over by the time you go through those people. And it's a mixture of people, and they have high levels of expertise in some cases, but in different areas of environmental science. So I don't foresee, if you look at it logically, that you'll need to wind up doing a lottery, hopefully, because I think it should be very intentional how the committee is created and how the applications are considered. It should be qualification driven, in my mind.
Have one small note about the application process. Don't have it in front of me, but I believe it says 9 members and 1 college student and 1 high school student. It does not say that.
It does say that, Mr.
It does
Chair.
say that.
I'm looking at it right here.
Including,
Including.
Does it say including?
It says, the board will consist of 9 adult citizens, one of which would be a city liaison, city council liaison, and 1 college student and 1 high school student.
I don't think you, plus the liaison,
Plus, so the liaison would be
a
a
non-voting.
non-voting member. So that's,
Right.
you keep the odd number.
Just the way I read it. Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
Mhm.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, the level of expertise represented in the applications was quite, surprising, actually. In a good way.
Yeah, ultimately, when they come back to us, council, for a recommendation, will there also be a recommendation made for the city council liaison as well? By the personnel committee, or how will that work?
So the Personnel Committee hasn't discussed how,
Okay.
how that would look like. What we have talked about sort of informally is that the chair of Public Works or a member of the Public Works Committee could be that liaison, because
Mhm.
some of the topics are going to be somewhat, we don't want to duplicate efforts, but
Right.
I would think that some of the recommendations from the Environmental Advisory Committee would go first to Public Works, then to Public Safety. So that would be my recommendation, to have someone.
But
from
that's,
this
that's still
committee.
in process
Yes,
of the
yes, sir.
discussion. Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
as far as timeline, how do you see this timing out? Are we getting to the point where will there be one in play before the end of the year, or will you fold that in? And how do you see this all going time-wise?
For the,
Selection process and creation of the committee to actually start meeting?
well, council would have to appoint, so it depends if the Personnel Committee is comfortable making a recommendation this month. Council can appoint in August, and we could start planning for a meeting in the following month or in October.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you very much. Item B under new business is discussion of existing tip agency outsourcing agreement for haulers. Now, this came from a citizen with an inquiry about health insurance for these contract laborers. And Donnie explained it to me before the meeting, and if you'd be so kind, I'd like you to tell us publicly what you told me.
Sure. So the city uses temp agency Staff Zone. I will tell you that they are really the only temp agency that still employs what we call in my world as slingers, which are those folks working on the back. Most of your other temp agencies will not go into that arena because of the risk. Safety risk. So they just don't employ those folks that do that kind of work. We have a very good relationship with Staff Zone, the City of Isle of Palms, as well as Carolina Waste, and that's the only two places that they send their slingers. So that being said, those guys, they are hired daily by the city. They have workers' comp. They are vetted. They are tested daily before they're deployed. They have the ability to acquire their own health insurance through Staff Zone. But there is some skin in the game, just like it is for any employee. There's a little bit of a cost share. It's not much, but so they have that option, and it's optional. And that's kind of how we do it. City has 5 temps that I hire every day, and they really work 40 hours for me. Most of you know some of them. They've been with the city, working for the city for 10 years plus through Staff Zone. As a matter of fact, I've tried to hire one twice and he chose to stay where he was. And I will tell you, and most of you know him very well, there are no skeletons in this guy's closet. He can outsmart any of us, saxophone and the opera and you name it. But when we tried to hire him, there's no skeletons in this guy's closet, no drinking or anything. But they're very loyal. They are employees. As a matter of fact, yesterday, the city Public Works Department was awarded the safety award for Staff Zone, from Staff Zone. So very safe, and that comes with experience and keeping these same guys. They're loyal. They know everybody wants to come to the Isle of Palms to work from Staff Zone. It's a ticket that's well sought after. Now, we did have trouble with hiring enough that I didn't have to DNR them, which means don't return. And I'll call and get the van to come get them. So you got to be selective, and if they don't work out, those drivers, they are the supervisors. And so if they call me and you need to come get this guy on a Tuesday when I have to hire 10, I know 5 of who I'm gonna get, and 5 I don't even know their names. But if the supervisor calls, then we're gonna go get them, and we'll call Staff Zone to bring us somebody else. That's kind of how it works.
I just have one question, and it might be something you can't answer or you don't want to answer or whatever. And if should be minding my own business, then I'd appreciate you telling me.
10-4.
But it's $17.99 an hour for each contract laborer. Is that correct? So what they charge you?
That is
Yes.
correct. That's a current rate.
Do you know how much goes to the worker himself, or is that none of my business?
No, I do not know.
Do you know?
I do not know.
I think based on their seniority would depend on,
Okay.
and I will tell you that, one of the fellas, the one that all of you know, from time to time, he may have to drive the white truck. And if he drives the white truck, I write driver down, and he's paid a different rate for that drive.
Okay.
It
That's
just
good.
gives me more versatility.
Yeah, and but they do have the ability, as you said, with some of their own skin in the game, to acquire health insurance.
From Staff Zone, absolutely.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you. Sound like a lawyer. Terrible. Nothing against lawyers. Thank you, Donnie. Okay, item C, discussion of golf cart path along Ocean Park Plaza. I've been kind of asking about this for probably a year, and it never has been a really good time to approach Department of Transportation about it. But as you know, on the ocean side, Palm, by beachside, the houses over there, there's a dirt path that all the golf carts use. And when you get up to Ocean Park Plaza, there the cut for handicapped people is pointed out towards traffic. Now, when I use that golf cart path and I get there, I will not turn if people are coming down Palm Boulevard, because that's the Daytona 500.
Right.
When they come around that stoplight and they're trying to beat people in the right lane, trying to beat people in the left. And so, I mean, I've seen people, they get their golf cart, it's just a little bit of traffic, but something seriously bad could go wrong. And if the golf cart would turn over, it would be a really bad situation. So I'd like to see us approach, do whatever we can do with the help of staff to just get that golf cart, that might get that path widened to where you won't have to get in traffic. I've seen mothers with small children on golf carts making that turn right in the middle of traffic. It scares me to death. And I was just wanted to ask Desiree what your thoughts were on it. Where are we?
So, I'm sorry. So this has come up before, not necessarily where that path naturally merges onto existing sidewalk and then onto that entrance to Ocean Park Plaza. The challenge is that that path we call golf cart path is not technically a golf cart path. It hasn't been designed or permitted for golf carts. And in order to do so, DOT, to do what you're requesting, DOT is going to require, we would need to submit an encroachment permit. And for the city to submit an encroachment permit, we would have to fully design that path, not only in that section, but all the way where we know it's being used. And that, again, requires some engineering and design, and also easement acquisition. There is at the curve where you're coming off of 21st Avenue and curving and you go sort of parallel to Beachside, that path actually encroaches onto their property. So we would need to get an easement from them if the goal is to make that golf cart path permanent or somewhat, permitted. So it seems small, but when you start peeling back the onion, it turns into a very big project. One that, I think it should be pursued, but it will take time and it will take resources allocated to that so that we can, one, get an engineer to design and create specs, request the easement from Beachside community, then be able to submit it to DOT for approval. And then after that, be able to make some improvements through construction.
Well, I appreciate all your hard work and getting that information together. It's very helpful. Of course, I'm a little discouraged, but it's really not the right time. As you say, peeling back the onion, there's nothing really simple. Not here. Yes, ma'am.
I am actually encouraged that we could improve it. I was under the impression that it was kind of a look the other way situation, that we weren't technically supposed to have any path there at all, even though obviously people use it. And if there is a way that we can create something that is good there for people to use and safe, I think it's worth definitely. I mean, I'd like to see the numbers, but I think it's well used anyway. It will be used even more if people feel safe doing it. And I know exactly what Councilmember Ward is talking about it, because I feel nervous when I do it as well, because you have to do this kind of weird dip thing into ongoing traffic. Or wait. I mean, we wait. I try to wait, but so I'm encouraged that we could maybe fix that situation.
There is another option too that we have used in other situations where we request DOT to quitclaim or, deed us that section of right of way. If they do that, they pretty much say, okay, this is your property, and then the city would have the ability to do what we want with that. That has a lot of other implications, because we'd be acquiring right of way, but there are multiple options, I guess, that we could consider moving forward to get some sort of enhancements to that area, because you're right. I mean, people do use it. Technically, people shouldn't be using it, but we know it's been used, and we know golf carts are very, very popular in our community. And I think we should do all we can to make it safer for those folks who do it legally. There are also complications, just to peel one layer of the onion back, with the crosswalk. People use the crosswalk at 21st to get onto that golf cart path. That crosswalk hasn't been authorized for golf carts. Same thing, the makeshift path that has been made on the opposite side of the road on Palm Boulevard, adjacent to, parallel to the church. So there are just a few things that would need to be in place in order to make it, to do it right. And I think that that's what we certainly should pursue.
Let me give Rusty a chance.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to repeat everything you said, Mr. Chair or Council Woman Smith, because you had great points, but it's being used. I mean, let's face it, you go out there and look at it, you can see where the carts come up from 21st and then cross over at 21st at the crosswalk there, and of course, coming all the way around. So it's something that the island residents are very accustomed to. I think anything we do to try to make that happen would be great, because there really are no other options if you think about it, unless you go on the other cart path by Carmen Bunch and then try to cross Daytona 500 like Jimmy's talking about,
Yeah.
which is dangerous in and of itself as well. And the area there where it falls out into Ocean Park, I've noticed that too. And there's also, instead of making that little dangerous cut, some people, you can tell how the carts now have gone over the curb
Yes. yeah.
on the other side of it. So they've taken an alternative way that, quite honestly, is pretty dangerous looking too. Could tip a cart or something. So, I won't belabor the issue, but we certainly should do all we can to make that happen.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, just in terms of the reference that you made to the crosswalk, and now it's changed because we have the addition of the kind of the concrete with the crosswalk that goes there. Maybe this is a moment when we need to think a little bit out of the box about what is the best way to get a golf cart from one side of Palm Boulevard to the other, recognizing that many people want to do that, and it's a quality of life issue because so many more people are using golf carts. But
Desiree, would you consider just keeping this on the agenda for old business next month?
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm glad y'all are encouraged and are supporting it. I think it's important. And thank you for your support. Miscellaneous business, none that I know of. Next meeting date will be 4 p.m. Wednesday, September 8th. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Right.